Okay, today's Cardinal lesson, we're reviewing the Social Security's Trustees Report that came out May 6th, and it took till May 7th, maybe even some on May 6th. All kinds of headlines. Social Security is running out of money by 2035, and Social Security is going to cut benefits to 80% to the beneficiaries. And a lot of these people, I read most of the articles, and it's real apparent to me that the people that wrote the article didn't read the Social Security's Trust Fund report. And so, what I'm going to do today is I have read the report and I went through there and I took the numbers and I boiled them down. And I'm just going to give a simple accounting of 2023, the financial workings of the Social Security Trust Fund, the payment of benefits, that sort of thing. And I'm hoping and planning to reframe and get you to look at this in a little different light. And with that said, I want to bring Tom on, and I want Tom to tell you why we're doing this video.
Yeah, we're doing this video because when you take Social Security is one of the most important decisions you're going to make in retirement. And so we want you to be thoughtful about it. We want to give you the numbers behind it. We want you to not make the decisions based off what you see in the headlines, not based off what your brother or sister or friend told you to do. We want you to make the decision that's right for you. And that's what we do in our financial plans. And so what I want to do quickly is bring up the show notes. You can find these at the link below the video. They're also on our website under the show notes section. As always, we have the board. I'm not going to we have the full Social Security Trustees Report. It's 270 pages long. So Hans and I joked that we were going to spend today reading every word of it, but I won't make you sit through that. I do want to just point out where we got a lot of the numbers that are on the board. So that's down here, sort down a little bit on page 13. This is really the summary that's on the board. Then at the back of the trustees report, again 270 pages long, we have another report that's produced that gives a little more context about sort of what the actuaries did. And yes, here we go. And so again, if you want to go off to sleep, we got the thing to do it for you. You can read all of it. We've looked through it all. We know sort of what it says. That's what we're going to try to do in the video is summarize it for you. But if you want to go back to the source material, look at the actual report, you can find these in the show notes.
All right. So now try to make this as quick as I can, but I'd like you to follow me. So almost $3 trillion is the amount that Social Security has in the bank. Okay. It's invested. It's the trust fund, and all of it is in federal bonds of a long duration typically, and it's yielding a pretty low interest rate, but that money is there, and there's almost $3 trillion. And just, I put all the zeros just to give you an idea. We're not talking about a small amount of money. That's how much money Social Security has in the bank at the end of 2023 and the beginning of 2024. And, just to put it in some context, the federal debt is 34 trillion. So, and that's a really lot of money. And that's the amount of money that we have borrowed as a federal government. And that is a problem for another day to discuss. But the amount of money to the good that the Social Security Trust Fund has is almost 3 trillion, like 8% or so of the entire federal debt. I just want to give you a size that's a lot of money that Social Security has in the bank. And we're going to start with that. Now, what Social Security spent last year out of the trust fund was almost $1.4 trillion in Social Security checks. If you took all the Social Security checks that were paid out for all 12 months and you added it up for all the Social Security recipients, it's going to add up to $1.384 trillion, almost $1.4 trillion. And then Social Security pays their own administrative costs. This is all by the way it was set up in the beginning. So they paid $7.2 billion for all the Social Security offices across the country, all the data processing or, internet stuff and computers and the salaries of all the Social Security Administration officials. $7.2 billion. That's an expense from the Social Security Trust Fund or from the bank account. And then it had several sources of revenue, actually 3 sources of revenue. And the main source of revenue is the payroll taxes paid in by you if you're working. You pay 6.2% of every paycheck you get goes to the Social Security Trust Fund or the Social Security Administration. And then your employer pays a matching 6.2%. So when you add up all of that during 2023, that amounted to $1.2 trillion. So that in and of itself was almost enough to pay all the benefits. I mean, there was a shortfall there, but just to understand, that's why the Social Security Trust Fund didn't go way down last year, is because they had almost enough from the 6.2% times 2 of payroll to pay all the benefits to all the recipients. Then there was $66 billion of interest that was earned on all the bonds of the $2.8 trillion. So all those bonds are sitting there. It's a pretty low interest rate. And the reason the interest rate is so low is that interest rates over the last 15, 20 years have been extremely low. And so all the bonds that they're holding for a long duration, it's just the yield isn't very high. This will come up if these higher interest rates persist, or even not as high as they are now, but higher than they've been, persists for a long period of time. The amount of money that they're collecting on an annual basis will, on the trust fund, will go up. And then they collected $49 billion of income taxes. So people that have a high income in retirement pay taxes on their Social Security. We have a lot of clients that aren't too happy about that. But nonetheless, Social Security is taxed for higher income people. And that income tax that's collected by the government is funneled right back into the trust fund. And it was almost $50 billion last year. All that goes to pay the bills at Social Security. And so when you look at all the financial going on, I mean, I've only got 1, 2, 3, 4. I got 7 numbers on here in this accounting. So I did a lot of aggregating. But the shortfall was $41 billion that we actually had to take from the trust fund to make the whole system work. Okay? And I'm not trying to say there isn't a problem. What I'm telling you is the problem is not as it's characterized, because people just go to the very end, take the worst possible scenario and call it like it's 2035 and we just run out of money and we're cutting benefits. And that's what I'd like you to do, is just take a little more of a positive outlook and to acknowledge that, we have a lot of money sitting in the bank. We do have a problem because over time, the actuaries have predicted that we're going to pay out more than we're going to collect, and it's eventually going to put the thing in bad financial straits. So I'm just trying to show you that I don't think the problem is as serious as they're making it, and I think it very much has a solution. So I want to bring Tom back on, and I want Tom to make some comments about my summary, anything that he has to add.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is helpful. I mean, it's a lot of numbers to write on the board there, but it's helpful to see that many zeros. Like, how much is actually in this trust fund? So it is not in danger of being bankrupt tomorrow or even next year or the next year, right? We got a runway here that allows us to fix it. I'm with Hans that we're not ignoring that there's a problem. There needs to be some fix to this, but we have some time for the politicians to sort of, get off their hands and actually do something about this. And I think they will. Our opinion is they will. Too many seniors solely rely on Social Security as their income. And so they're going to have to fix it. What that change is, we'll get into some possible solutions here in a little bit. But, I think when people come to us, especially they're retiring now, then maybe you're taking Social Security early because they're worried about it not being there in the future. It's like, let's just take a pause there and really, objectively look at that, right? Ultimately, if that's really where you're at and you're not wanting to listen to us, you get to do whatever you want. But we're often recommending people take a little bit of, take a step back, look at this objectively, and sort of plan accordingly, as opposed to just making a decision. Because if you take it early and you've reduced your benefits for the rest of your life, that could be really impactful for you down the road. And so I think with the other thing that often gets claimed, so it's going to be out of money, we won't have Social Security. That's not what the report says. The report says if nothing happens, the trust fund will be out of money in 2035. And then at that point, it can only be funded by the payroll taxes coming in. And so, yes, your benefits potentially could be reduced. Again, I don't think that's going to happen, but it could be. But you're not going to have no check. You're still going to get a check. And again, ultimately, I think the politicians are going to do something to shore this up. And that's what they did back in 1983. They had the same kind of problem they were facing. My mother-in-law actually, she talks to me. Her high school teacher told her about what was going to happen to the Social Security, and as in turn, they did something to fix it. Right? They helped shore it up. They've pushed it down the road. Now we're sort of facing a similar type of deal, and so now I think they need to go back to the drawing board and fix it. So Hans, why don't we talk a little bit about what back when they were facing this problem back in 1983? What did they do then to help sort of shore this up to push this down the road?
That was the last time we had a major change. In 1983, I was 25. As you can tell, I'm not 25 now, I'm 65. And, if you look at this, we were facing a similar problem. Not enough money in the bank, too many people retiring, too many people collecting in the system, not enough people paying in. We're going to have a shortfall. We got to do something about this. And so they did. And they got together a bipartisan commission, and they really made three major changes. Number one, they changed the full retirement age from 65, which it was since the beginning of Social Security, to 67. But they didn't do it all at once. They phased it in over 40 years, actually over a few more than 40 years, because right now, this is not fully phased in yet, because I was born in 1958, and my full retirement age is 66 and 8 months. My wife, born in 1959, she's 66 and 10 months. People born in 1960, they are actually 67. So what they did in 83, they phased it in so slowly that it took until 42 years or 43 years for it to take its full effect. But that got us to where we are today. And so we'll get on. They did that. The next thing they did is they implemented a federal tax on Social Security benefits, but only for the upper income people. I remember my dad was furious about this, and he was also telling me, you're never going to collect a dime out of Social Security. He says, there's just not going to be enough left for people your age. But in any case, he paid his taxes and he was just fine. And what, I pointed out earlier is to this day, that's producing $50 billion back into the system. So it's like higher income people get a big Social Security check, but then they give right back the tax, and the tax goes right back into the fund. So I'm not trying to get you to like this. I'm just telling you that's what they did. And they started that in 1983 to make the thing work better. And then the payroll tax was increased to 6.2%. And remember, that's really 12.4 because the employee pays the 6.2 and the employer pays the 6.2. It was much lower than that. And so they just had to raise the tax, and that got us to where we are today. I mean, let's just kind of put it that way. And those three changes moved us ahead 40 years. And in my opinion, we need to do something similar. And I don't like any of these things that need to be done. So this video is not trying to make you like this or support it politically. I'm just telling you the facts. If we do nothing, which I don't really believe is going to happen, if Congress does nothing, if the politicians do nothing, then what they're saying in the headlines is this trust fund most likely will run out of money in 2035. But, as Tom said, we still are going to have the payroll tax coming in, and that's still going to pay whatever percentage of the benefit. So it's not like it's going to be broke. But I'm of the belief, I don't want to see this happen. What I would much rather see happen is that our politicians would get their act together. And what I'm putting down here is number one, is they can raise the age again from 67 to something like 69 or 70. And that doesn't mean you can't retire at 62. It just means that you'll have a bigger penalty for taking it early, or to get your full benefits, you'll have to wait longer. And that would, as soon as that gets passed, that gets put into all the actuarial configurations, and it would start fixing some of our future problem, and to increase the tax. And I don't know that the tax needs to be a huge amount, from 6.2% to something, but I'll let the tax writers come up with their numbers and with the actuaries and come up. But that's another lever that can be pulled, which nobody wants to pull. I mean, who wants to be the politician that raises taxes? And these are payroll taxes. They're not technically an income tax, but in the interest of solving the Social Security problem, I want to stay neutral on the political thing. I'm just telling you that that would be another source of money. And then the third source of money would be when a person that's a high income gets to $168,600 of income in 2024, their next dollar, or their next dollars, say somebody makes $300,000 a year, they're at 168.6 by like August. So the government collects from high income people most of their Social Security in the first half of the year, and they don't pay any 6.2%, nor does their employer, on all money above that. And so what they've talked about doing is raising that. So again, I don't want to turn this show into political, but this is an economic problem that we need to solve. And I want to bring Tom on. And, I just want to acknowledge that I'm 65, Tom's 32. So the people that are going to be paying the freight for the most of this are going to be his generation.
Yeah, it sounds like you're trying to take my benefits away right now, John. But I mean, ultimately, that's what they did in the past, right? I mean, when they were implementing these changes in '83, they were affecting your benefits, Hans. It wasn't your parents, really. I mean, maybe
Right.
maybe not,
It
but
wasn't my
it was really your benefits. And so the change is most likely going to be people more in my age group, as opposed to people closer to Hans your age. And so our clientele sort of are mostly people right around your age, more so than mine, that are retiring now, that are making decisions about when they take Social Security, like in the next year or two or several years. And so the benefits, the changes likely will more affect people younger than the people in their 60s or 65, somewhere in that range. Again, these are all assumptions. We don't know what's going to happen. Again, we're not the politicians. We don't get to make the rules. We certainly are watching this. But our opinion is that when they make a change, it will more affect people my age or maybe a little bit older than me, and less so people who are facing retirement in the next 5 to 10 years.
Okay. So just in summary, we'd like you to take a look at this Social Security future funding problem from a bit different perspective. And we'd also like you to put some pressure on your elected officials to actually do something, to come together in a bipartisan way and fix this problem. Because if we get on it early, the sooner we get on it, the more years we have to fix it in a less aggressive way. If we put this off for another 5, 6, 7, 8 years, then we're going to be in a real crisis that whatever we implement needs to turn things upside down. So I just wanted to change your perspective a little bit. In the context of financial planning, we've talked today about Social Security, really, and the funding of it all day. We've also talked about income, really income for seniors, and we've talked a bit about taxes, not the type of taxes that we normally talk about. But with that, I'm Hans Scheil.
And I'm Tom Griffith.
And we thank you very much for listening.
Thank you.